What's up, everybody? Welcome into CBB Weekly. This is going to be your weekly host for college basketball information. It's the offseason. I figured this would be a really good platform to kind of revive, to bring back, to talk college basketball. Really kind of a weekly thing. Just chat about what's going on in the portal, who's moved on, who's come in, who's making moves. We've had a busy couple of weeks since the season ended. Obviously, a lot of movers and shakers in the transfer portal. We've got coaches moving, all sorts of things going on. So I really wanted to have this kind of act as a host to keep you updated. Once the NBA draft gets closer, we'll start taking a look at that, kind of giving you my thoughts, and really try to continue to help you from a betting perspective. As we all know, college basketball is a yearly thing. You must stay on top of it. You must understand what's going on, and you need to keep it up here. So come November, when the season starts, you're not fumbling, you're not moving around trying to understand what's going on. If you want to do well in college basketball, and in any sports betting, and in any wagering aspect, fantasy, whatever you're looking at, you've got to stay on top of things. You can't just blindly jump into a season and say, oh, here we go. That stuff matters. That stuff's important. And I would advise in anything. I also use this channel to continue with other sports, talking about college football, getting you ready for the season there. Because, again, there are very few people that can do what I do from a personnel standpoint. So it's important to understand what's going on, what these teams are going to look like, and what these groups are going to have as we head into the seasons. But let's get into College Basketball Weekly. We've got a lot going on. There are two things that are going on right now. Kids are making decisions that are jumping from high school to college or into the pros. And kids are also making decisions on where they want to transfer to. And obviously, as we know, the transfer portal is hot right now. Before we get into the transfers and some of the moves that have been made already, I kind of want to just highlight on some big ones that you want to keep an eye on. And this is all important because when you're looking at futures, this is very big. Stuff like this is important. And really kind of having your ear to the street, you could get some info that could allow you to get in on a team at 50-1. Before it moves, and once it moves, it's at 30-1. All this stuff is important, and it's keeping you abreast of what's going on. A couple of decisions. Obviously, this week we had the big announcement that the number one recruit in the country, Chadholmgren, would be going to Gonzaga. Keep in mind, his compatriot at Minnehaha Academy, Jalen Suggs, was at Gonzaga as well. He followed him to Gonzaga, and obviously that's huge. You're getting a kid at the level of prospect that Holmgren is. Gonzaga has been slowly but surely finding their way into being that top school. We've seen it with Jalen Suggs last year, but now they're almost the go-to spot as big-time recruits want to go to. It's not necessarily Kentucky anymore or Duke. It's Gonzaga. When you look at Chet Holmgren, okay, I think there's a lot of mysterious kind of traits that Holmgren has that you don't necessarily know he has. I believe he is a generational player. That player at that size that can do that sort of thing is absolutely incredible. And when you can bring in the possibility that Drew Timme is going to return, it is scary to think about what him, Timme, and Watson could be in a front court, because Watson will be another year older. He'll be another year stronger. Holmgren is the best shot blocker I've seen in a long time, probably since Mo Bamba. That would probably be a good kind of shot blocker comparison that we've seen in the high school game to go into college. He is an elite shot blocker. He is an elite overall player on the block. He can totally totally change a course of a game, because all you really need to do with him is keep him in the middle of the paint and say, look, this is how we're going to play. If you come into the fucking paint, you're going to get your shot blocked. It's that simple. When you look at him offensively, though, he's extremely productive. He's extremely versatile. He's a shooter. He's got good ball skills around the perimeter. He can really do anything. And I think a lot of people will zero in on the fact that he is a tweener as far as weight. He will get bullied, I think, on the paint. Here's the thing, though. Okay, it is April 20th. Let's remember, Chet Holmgren, before this decision, since the season ended for him in high school until the start of the season in November, is going to have 6 to 8 solid months of high college basketball weight training. We know colleges, especially Gonzaga, have elite weight programs. So he's going to go into the weight room. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get way better from a weight standpoint. And I think by the time the season starts, he's going to be a real terror. And if Timmy comes back, listen, I already think they're the number one team in the country heading into the season with a guy like Hunter Solison. Andrew Nemhard has decided he's going to come back to Gonzaga. But getting a guy like Chadholmgren is really incredible. It's really a testament to what Gonzaga is now, even with Tommy Lloyd gone. Really incredible. A couple other pieces of news. There are some kids that have still not made decisions on where they're going to go, and namely players in the top 10, particularly even in the top 5. You look at a guy like Jaden Hardy, who I would probably say is the second high. He could be, according to a lot of people, the best player in this class overall. Jaden Hardy, the shooting guard out of Henderson, Nevada, 6'4" combo guard who can really do it all. The decision that I think he's going to make, though, and why Jaden Hardy's not exactly really, I think, a talking point, I would have to imagine he's going to go to the G League. There's been a lot of talk recently that he's going to make the jump straight to G League. I don't think we'll see him in the college game. And look, good for him. Credit to what he's going to want to do. That's his decision, right? Kids want to go and they want to make money. And the truth of the matter is, you look at a kid like Jalen Green or Jonathan Kuminga, who went to the G League last year. They're making top dollar. They're making $500,000 for 6 months of activity. And then they're going to go to the NBA and make another couple of million right out of the gate. So credit to these kids that do go to college. Credit to the kids that go to the G League. I think it's a great option to have. Jaden Hardy, whatever G League team he goes to, whether it's the Ignite or whoever, they're going to get a very good basketball player, a guy that can truly do it all as a combo guard out of Henderson, Nevada at Coronado High School. So credit to him, but I don't think we'll see him in the college game. Another undecided so far is Patrick Baldwin, a kid out of Sussex, Wisconsin. For anyone that's not aware, his father, Patrick Baldwin Sr., is the coach over at UW Milwaukee. And the contending thought right now is he is going to go to UW Milwaukee, which, again, he would be the best player to ever go play for UW Milwaukee. Now, again, a lot of people are looking at it and saying, well, he's a top 5 recruit. Why does he want to play at UW Milwaukee? Well, again, because his dad's the coach. That's why. And look, was UW Milwaukee thinking of that when he was hired, recently? Probably. I mean, it's not a bad thought. He was hired in 2017, 2018. But again, this is a big-time get for a team like UW Milwaukee. Now, he, again, may go somewhere else, but the prevailing thought is Patrick Baldwin is going to go to UW Milwaukee. Now, that's important for another reason on the basketball court. He will be the best player in that conference. It's that simple. He is the best shooter in this class. He is a extreme talent on the perimeter, on the wing. He's got a really high basketball IQ. He's going to set UW Milwaukee ahead by a nice margin. Question is, can they fill in around him, put in there a good point guard? And look, getting a guy like Baldwin helps so many ways because you could entice other players to come play with him, and it's just going to be a really good situation. And we saw last year with UW Milwaukee that this is a team with more talent than I think one thing might lead on. This was a team that went to deep into the Horizon League tournament. A guy like DeAndre Golston played really well for that group. This is a team that has some offensive talent. They have the ability to have a good point guard. So I'm kind of enthralled by if they are able to get Baldwin, which they should. You'd have to imagine a kid's not going to spurn his own father and he's going to go play for him. So that's interesting. A top 5 recruit might just go to UW Milwaukee. Shout out to the Panthers. All right, let's look at a couple of transfers, couple impactful transfers that have already made decisions on where they're going to go play basketball. First of which, I want to talk about Michigan State. Because Michigan State obviously had a tough season. We all know that. They had a down year. They had kind of the stretch where, they made their way into the NCAA tournament, lost in that first game against UCLA, which ultimately, wasn't, a bad thing. I mean, UCLA proved to be very good and going all the way to the Final Four. But for Tom Izzo, it was not good enough, right? They just weren't very consistent, and they needed a real run towards the end of the season to even get into the tournament. Getting into the tournament is not a win for Michigan State, okay? He'll tell you that. The expectation every year is to win the NCAA title. That's what Michigan State is. We all know that. I don't have to bore you with that. But the transfer window for Michigan State is very important because it's about addressing the issues that plagued you last year. One of the main issues Michigan State had was they had no cohesion at the point guard spot. Rocket Watts didn't work out. And losing a transcendent player like Cassius Winston to go from him to, no offense, the guards they had last year wasn't good enough. And they had major problems. They didn't turn the opponent over, and they had issues with turnovers. It was just an issue, okay? They had no consistent offense. The whole offense broke down. It's just that simple. Now you look at this year, okay, there's a lot to be excited about because you have a lot of kids coming back, right? Gabe Brown's going to come back. You know, Marcus Bingham's going to come back. You know, Madi Sissoko's going to come back. You know, there's a lot of, guys that left in a Julius Marble's back, but there's a lot of excitement as far as getting a guy like Tyson Walker from Northeastern. Now, Tyson Walker to Michigan State fans is a name that I think you're obviously all excited about, and you should be. Tyson Walker is a top-level scorer. He's a top-level point guard. He's a top-level everything. And when he was at Northeastern under Bill Cohen, he did it all. For anyone that's not aware, Bill Cohen runs a motion offense, okay? There's a lot of movement around. They need that type of player to run the offense. Tyson Walker did that. One of the top scorers in America. He's a good shooter. He's a good free throw shooter. He's a great guy from an assist rate standpoint, top 35 in assist rate. A lot to be excited about with Tyson Walker. He really stabilizes a spot for a team. One of the more impactful players you're going to find, in my opinion, for the team that he's going to. You also look at the chatter with Thomas Kiffier moving on. There is an open scholarship at Michigan State. And the prevailing thought is Imani Bates is going to reclassify and go to Michigan State. Now, again, right now, looking at the Big Ten from a future standpoint and from an overall standpoint from where Michigan State's going to be, I believe Imani Bates is going to reclassify and go to Michigan State. He's 17 years old. He has the ability to reclassify and basically go play 1 year at Michigan State. For anyone that's not aware, Imani Bates may be the best prospect in a long time in college basketball. He is the next big thing. He's been the talk of the town for a long time. He does everything. If he reclassifies and goes to Michigan State is a title contender. It's that simple. With Walker, with the returning kids they have coming back, with other transfers they may get, maybe a John Harrar, someone like that, someone that can shot block and rebound. And if you can add Imani Bates, you are ultimately a title contender. My thought is he reclassifies. We'll see what he does. I think he'd be nuts to not reclassify. We'll see. But the big question is, if he can do that, where's Michigan State in the Big Ten kind of level? I think the top three teams in the Big Ten going into the season are Michigan, are Michigan State, and are Purdue. Ohio State will be around as well. But Michigan State, if they can add Imani Bates, they are a top-level team in the Big Ten. They are going to go from average to very good. So keep that in mind when you're looking at future odds right now. If I had to give odds on it, I would say he reclassifies and goes to Michigan State next year. Now, when you look at the current odds to win the national title next year, Michigan State's 25-1. That is a good price on this group, okay? And even if they don't add Bates, I think they're going to add another transfer or two. I think they're going to be significantly better. They were a tournament team last year, and if they were a tournament team with that team, they're in, a Sweet 16 Elite 8 type of team. That's enough room to warrant a 25-1 price. So if you're looking at a team and saying, okay, where do I go after the transfer portal? Michigan State is a team you have to look at. A couple other transfers and just teams that have made massive moves. Arkansas, okay, they've been very active. And good for Musselman for being active. He's always been very active in the portal. He's always very good at getting kids to come play. He did it in Nevada, and he's going to do it in Fayetteville, right? He's made 3 moves, and they were all huge. Chris Likes, diminutive, water bug, little guy, but he's a great point guard. Very stable, going to be very good for that offense. He didn't play a lot last year at Miami, but he's going to be really good in that system. They are kind of up-tempo, a lot of run and gun. Chris Likes is going to be perfect for that. He can get a bucket, he can get to the line, really stabilizes that point guard spot for them. And that's, I think, the go-to spot if you are a coach. The goal right out of the gate is to stabilize a point guard spot, right? And Chris Likes, again, didn't play a ton last year, only played 2 games for them. But when you look back to the previous year, he was a big-time factor, Chris Likes. Did a lot of good things for them in 2019, 2020. Didn't turn it over. Took a lot of shots. Was a good, for the most part, scorer. Not a great shooter. At times he was. I guess for him, he didn't take a ton of threes, but he was a good shooter. Getting him is huge. The big get is Stanley Umidi, the kid from South Dakota, who outside of Max Asmus was the best scorer in the country last year. Summit League does a great job. They always have a lot of good scorers, whether it was Mike Dom, whether it was Matt Mooney, whether it was Max Asmus, or whether it's Stanley Umidi. Umidi dropped 30 or more 4 times last year, dropped 40 or more twice, including a 41-point effort against South Dakota State, who's the best team in that conference generally every year. He's a bucket getter. And he's something that Arkansas didn't necessarily have. Okay, they had a couple of guys that could get to the bucket, but not consistently. Right? You see Moses Moody, he fell off a ton. Umidi is a high-level player. This is arguably one of the best moves for a team in the transfer portal. It's that simple. Umidi is a high-level scorer. Now, again, it's important to point this out. Just because a team gets a transfer, it does not mean he is going to translate. 2 things happen to transfers that go from a South Dakota to a big school, or from a Presbyterian to a big school. They either do well or they do poorly. Okay? You can look at 2 different levels of that. Right? Case in point, you look at a guy like Matt Mooney. He goes from South Dakota to Texas Tech. They go to the title game. And he was a huge factor. A couple of years ago, a kid named Justin Knight left William & Mary and went to UNC. Justin Knight was one of the best shooters in America. Went to UNC, did absolutely nothing. Okay? Not always do transfers find their way. But one thing I do like about Summit League players, they're usually kids that can just get buckets, and they're always going to have kind of a role. Umidi's a better defender, I think, than people give him credit for, and he is an elite scorer. It's that simple. One other one Arkansas made as well, they went out and got Aldis Toney. Aldis Toney is going to be a really good glue guy for Arkansas. He's not going to be the go-to player for them, but he's going to fit on a team that generally has, 4 or 5 different guys that can get a bucket. And Aldis Toney had a really good career at Pittsburgh. We saw a mass exodus from Pittsburgh. A lot of kids left. And that has a lot to do with the coach there, Jeff Capel. It was pretty obvious. But a triumvirate of kids. Musselman, very active, understands what he needs. And I think that's where Musselman shines. I don't love him on the court. I think he's good. He's not great. I think he's a little overrated. But from a strict standpoint of getting kids to come there, he's elite. I think down the road, he kind of will rival a Roy Williams type, where he can get kids to just come there. That's what he does. He gets high-level players to come play for him. We saw it with Moses Moody. Moses Moody was a top recruit, and we're seeing it now with transfers. A couple other teams that I've been pretty high on what I've seen. Florida. And I got to give credit to Mike White here, because Mike White has not been a favorite of mine. For whatever reason, Mike White has kids that are really good, when they run and they play up tempo, but Mike White doesn't want to play up tempo. And his teams struggle a lot offensively. Keep in mind, since 2017, he's not had a team in the top 25 from an offensive efficiency standpoint. And I think the moves that he's made in the portal have basically said, look, we're done with that. We're going to be a top team offensively. And there were stretches last year where they looked really good. Now, there are some question marks at Florida. Will Colin Castleton come back? He's testing the waters in the draft. Who knows what he'll do? Could he be like a kind of a second kind of big for a team, like a, I don't know, Nick Collison? I don't know, maybe. Will he come back? I think it's 50-50. But when you look at what they've done, okay, they've addressed the scoring considerably. Bringing in Marion Jones from Penn State, big-time move. Marion Jones is a top shooter. He's a 40% shooter, 15 points a game. He's durable, too. You look at him 50 games in his career, he's played 48 of them. He's very durable. Always going to be in there. And I think the only times he didn't play, I think it was from just like the flu or something 2 years ago. So this is a guy that's very durable. And he's going to give you a really good score that a team like this needs. Because they've had a lot of exits. And Noah Locke, Trey Mann, Omar Payne, they've had a lot of kids leave. And Nemhard a couple of years ago. You need to address that, okay? So they go out and they get Marion Jones, who's a scorer. They also go out and get Philanders Fleming from Charleston Southern. Now, I know a lot of lay college basketball fans don't know Philanders Fleming, but for anyone that's not aware, I mean, Philanders Fleming really, in all respect to Barclay Radenbaugh and Charleston Southern, but having him on Charleston Southern is kind of a waste. No offense. He's an elite scorer. And I mean that. I mean, he dropped. I remember in that game against Presbyterian that they were able to win late in the season. I mean, he dropped. I think he had a buzzer beater in that game. I mean, he had 35 points, I believe, in that game. It was incredible. Kid's just a lanky scorer. He wanted to play basically his final year somewhere where he could win. And again, we haven't seen necessarily some of these kids translate. And I look at one in particular. A couple of years ago, a kid, Jihad Proctor, he went to High Point, was really a good player for Tubby Smith. Went to Purdue, didn't really pan out. So I think sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. But if I know anything about Philanders Fleming, high basketball IQ, durable, tough kid, can get a bucket, really good from the line, really good at getting to the line. His free throw rate was really high last year, and that's one thing I think you like. Good steal percentage, just an overall good player, good rebounder, just a do-it-all kid. Really hard worker. I think Mike White's going to like him a lot. And I think both these kids are going to add a lot to what Florida does going forward. It's important, I think, for them. They've kind of struck out, okay, on some of these kids that they brought in. And they needed some durability and some cohesiveness. And they bring in two guys that are really durable, upperclassmen. They're going to be able to really contribute to a team. They also bring in Brandon McKissick, a kid out of Kansas City, UMKC. Played under Billy Donlin over at Kansas City. And, look, Billy Donlin has some ties to Florida. He's a great defensive coach. McKissick was one of the best defensive players in college basketball last year. And played in a conference in the Summit League that, as I said, very good offensive conference. And the fact that when you look at UMKC on the season last year, 129 in defensive efficiency, McKissick was the reason for that, right? Okay, he had one of the best steal percentages you'll find, at least for him. When you look at McKissick in conference last year in the Summit League, right? Number one in steal percentage. Okay, there's a lot of things that Florida is doing to be excited about. They're going out and getting kids that defend, that can score in bunches. They're going to be a team to keep an eye on. And if Castleton comes back, I have a lot of interest in this team, okay, because the one thing about them that you'll say, well, they're bringing in, transfers, and that doesn't always work out. Here's the thing, though. Every transfer they're bringing in is a 4-year player. They're all durable. They all have cohesion. They all have that durability, that IQ, that high-level basketball IQ. This is the year for Mike White, I think. I really believe that. Couple that with some of the things that they're doing in kind of the recruiting angle and just the kids that they already have. When you look at recruiting for Florida, it's not been great, right? I mean, they don't have really any top players coming in, okay, which is kind of a knock from where they've been before. Now, there are some kids that still have to make decisions, that they'll have some offers out to, but it's largely for them been kind of a strikeout. Now, Michael Foster, one of the top 10 recruits, has Florida on his list. There are kids out there that they've made offers to. But when you're looking at transfers, Florida has really hit so far on, I think, the quality of transfer they're getting. So keep that in mind for when we're looking next year at transfers and at the odds. When you look at Florida, right, currently in the transfer market or in the future market, the odds are quite good, 50-1 on Florida. You get Colin Castleton back. You get some things to maybe, get maybe one more transfer, maybe get a big-time recruit, and a kid like Foster. I have interest. And again, Castleton has entered for feedback. He is not someone that has committed to it yet. I think he comes back, personally. We'll see what Scotty Lewis does as well. And again, this stuff's always moving. So by the time you hear about this, maybe these decisions are made. Don't jump on me if Scotty Lewis makes a decision and I didn't have it. I have the info. Don't worry about that. One or two others quickly. Jaden Gardner, I think this is one of the top moves in the portal. And it's a different way from where Bennett usually goes. Bennett did it last year with Hauser. It made a big splash. Virginia went from being a good offensive team or kind of an average offensive team to a really good offensive team, right? And again, they kind of missed it a little bit because they didn't have anyone really outside of Hauser and Huff that could really do it. Kihei Clark's back. They're going to get some other kids back as well in kind of those role players. But it is important that they go out and find talent, right? You go out and get Jaden Gardner. And I've made this case before. I thought Jaden Gardner, over the last 2 seasons, was the best player in the American Conference. Yeah, better than anyone at Houston, better than anyone at Wichita, better than anyone. I mean, maybe, when UConn was there, you throw them in as well. But he is a top player, okay? He's a top coveted transfer. And getting him in is big time. He can do it all for them. He's huge in that blocker mover offense. He's a good shooter. He can rebound. He can really do it all. And he's got great size. And he's going to fit in well to a team that really defends at high level. We know how good they are defensively. Couple that with the kids they already have. Couple that with the fact they also got Armand Franklin, the guard from Indiana. Big-time scorer as well. I think a guy that can really stabilize the guard position for them with Kihei Clark, kind of that off-ball player. Like what they're doing as well. Defensively, they're always going to be elite, right? They weren't necessarily elite last year. 36th in defensive efficiency. They're usually top 5, right? So I think, and ultimately, a disappointing season because whenever you kind of thought Virginia figured things out, they would have this weird loss, right? So they lose to San Francisco. They lose to Gonzaga, which wasn't crazy to lose to Gonzaga. Losing to San Francisco was weird. They would rattle off 7 in a row in the ACC. And then you lose to Virginia Tech by 14 on the road and score 51 points. Or the loss to Duke and Florida State and NC State in the middle of the season. Just then that weird loss to Ohio. It's just the COVID issues. It was just a weird season for them. I expect a full bounce back, and I expect a big-time jump up with getting a kid like Jaden Gardner and Armand Franklin. They were a top 20 Ken Pom team. You look at coming into the season next year, 25-1, also very good odds. So keep that in mind. Also, Matt Bradley, like that move to San Diego State. They lose Matt Mitchell, but they gain Matt Bradley. And Matt Bradley was if there was anything good about Cal basketball over the last couple of years, it was Matt Bradley. They were unbackable without Bradley. If I saw Bradley in the lineup, and I was getting double-digit points or a good amount of points, I would take Cal. Without Bradley, they weren't backable. Bradley is a top-level Pac-12 player. He's going to be a top-level player in the Mountain West and really gives some things to think about with San Diego State, because we know every year they're an elite team, and they're not done in the portal. Okay, they may go out and get someone else. So there's a lot, I think, to still iron out with San Diego State. They're a team that is constantly a factor because, again, they're not Gonzaga, but they have found ways to get big-time players to come play for them, right? They have found ways to get big-time recruits to come play for them, right? And that's something that, as a program, you need to do. And that's why you have to respect what San Diego State does, because they're not Gonzaga, but they have elevated. I remember when Steve Fisher took that job over, nobody wanted to go to San Diego State. He had to hand tickets out for people to come watch that team play. And now they're a factor. It's that simple. So good decision to get Bradley to come there. Who knows who else they may get. There's still so many kids that are undecided, right? So many kids. So that's CBB Weekly for this week. A little long. I probably threw a couple people in that I wasn't going to necessarily talk about. We're going to do this every week, though. And I'm excited to do it every week because I wanted an avenue to talk about college hoops. The NBA draft starting to come. We're going to have things that we can talk about there. And the transfer portal is always moving around. So a lot to get to. If you ever have something you want me to talk about, reach out to me on Twitter. Comment below on what you want to see me do here with this. And I'm going to add other content as well. I'm going to do some NFL draft stuff, getting you ready for college football, all sorts of things. So this is your hub for kind of my own personal content, just some things that I have passions for that I want to keep doing and talking about. I'm the big man on campus. As the bottom ticker says, follow me on Twitter, @JeffNadu, for all your sports betting needs. I've been in this game a long time, and that's one thing you can't ever take from me. I've been doing this a long fucking time. I've been on Twitter since 2009. Whether you love me or hate me, you can't knock my consistency and cohesion. I've been here for a long time. If I were on KenPom, I would be a top 5 cohesion guy. It's that simple. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, comment, like below. We'll see you next week here on CBB Weekly. I'm Big Man, and this is my Big Man on Basketball.